What's up guys, I'm Josh Mosiman and welcome to This Week in MXA, presented by O'Neill Racing. Thank you guys for tuning into this video. It's an awesome day because we are riding Ken Roczen's factory Suzuki HEP RM-Z450 race bike. The 2023 season was a big one for Ken Roczen as he left the HRC Honda team last minute, jumped on the progressive HEP Suzuki team for the season, very late in the off season coming into Anaheim 1, but he was all the hype. If you guys remember last year, he was riding Yamaha, he rode the Stark Varg, he rode the Suzuki, he even had Pro Circuit Kawasaki KX450s. He was riding all different bikes after he left Honda, trying to figure out what he was going to race for 2023. He ultimately landed on the progressive HEP Suzuki, and it was a big surprise to everyone, and he proved it. He went out and won the first Supercross for him at Indianapolis, held up the Kickstarter on the podium. It was an iconic moment. Even his mechanic, Travis Souls, now has a tattoo on his chest with the Kickstarter from that podium photo. Long story short, Suzuki is kind enough to let us and some other media guys ride the bike today. We're super excited. We've ridden multiple Ken Roczen bikes in the past. MXA's Dennis Stapleton, he's here. He rode Ken Roczen's RCH Suzuki that he won the 2016 Outdoor National Championship on. Dennis is gonna ride this Suzuki today. We've also ridden Ken Roczen's Red Bull KTM in the past. Those are a little more exclusive where only MXA was riding. This time we got to share it with the rest of the media crowd, but still gonna be a fun day. Suzuki's got 2024 Suzuki 250/450 out here for us with the RM Army Edition Pro Circuit mufflers. Long story short, this bike is pretty exotic. It's still dirty from racing at the LA Coliseum. Ken Roczen almost won the $1 million. It came down to the final laps of the race as he was chasing Jet Lawrence. But I'm excited to ride this thing today. It's a dream come true to be able to ride a factory bike. We got a fresh track, and it sounds like they put the motocross suspension on, the stuff that he used at Charlotte last weekend, the SuperMotocross Playoff number 2. Excited to see how it works on the track. Guys, that was quite the experience. Suzuki let us ride for a little over 30 minutes on Ken Roczen's race bike, glossing over it and even talking to Larry Brooks. Larry Brooks, team manager for the HEP Suzuki team. He was a longtime MXA test riders, so our loyal MXA followers and readers of the magazine, you guys know him well. He's been on a ton of covers, but he talked about the bike being very similar to stock. Obviously, it's got stock triple clamps on it. He said it was off a different model, sounds like 250 model, stock linkage, also stock handlebar mounts, and one big thing, they cut the subframe 10 mil to drop the rear end just a little bit lower. Long story short, today was an awesome day riding this thing. We had MXA's Dennis Stapleton and Brian Medeiros ride it with me. My first impressions, it was very stiff on initially, which gave it a very comfortable and stable feel, but it wasn't too stiff all the way through the stroke. I could overshoot, case, do anything I wanted, and the bike was super, super stable, but it wasn't so stiff that it was like Antonio Caroli's factory Red Bull KTM that we rode here last year. So we did have the benefit of riding a bone stock RM-Z450 today, back to back with Ken Roczen's bike, and for me, honestly, that really set the tone for the day, helped me understand the basics of the Suzuki as it's been a couple months since I've ridden this bike, and then jump on his bike. And wow, what a difference. It's pretty amazing what a team like HEP Suzuki can do to really customize bike for Ken. With a guy like Ken Roczen on your team, you have access to a lot more parts and a lot more things than you would previously with lesser known riders. Ken obviously battling for championships just 2 days ago in LA Coliseum. And this bike we rode today had the Charlotte suspension, which is more of an outdoor setting, which thank you very much, Suzuki, for letting us do that. And honestly, the cockpit was much more open for me. The bike was much more stable. Wasn't a rocket ship, just super smooth coming out of corners, which goes to show you, you don't need the fastest bike on the track. You just need a bike that you can be smooth with. Obviously, it had plenty of power, but it was easy to manage. All right, MXA's Brian Medeiros. He is a longtime Suzuki guy. Well, maybe not long time, but the last couple years he's been our Suzuki diehard test rider. He's been taking over our Suzuki 250 and 450 tests and racing them all over. He got to ride Ken Roczen's bike for a couple laps. MXA's Dennis Stapleton. He's ridden a ton of factory bikes for MXA over the years. Let's hear what they thought.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate over the years to get to ride many factory bikes, many production bikes. When you get the phone call to ride Ken Roczen's bike, you know it's going to be enjoyable. Not every factory bike is an enjoyable bike to ride or will make you a better or faster rider. Sometimes the setup that people like will throw you off. But Ken Roczen, on the other hand, he likes smooth power delivery, easy to ride. We ride Fox Raceway quite often, and on the standard bike, I'm from second to third constantly. On Kenny's bike, I can roll turns real nice in third gear, makes the chassis really balanced, really easy to ride. He's got a slipper clutch in his bike. You could feel it a little bit in the tighter turns as I probably pull the clutch in too much. My roll speed's definitely not Ken Roczen's roll speed. But overall, his bike's really fun to ride, really balanced, cockpit's open. He has the factory brakes on there. Today, when we went back and forth, the braking power is very similar to the stock brake, except for it makes the front wheel of the bike turn when you grab the front brake on the standard bike. Kenny's bike, when you grab the brake, it pulls the fork down and gives ultimate traction on the front end. His bike can just carve into a rut. Sometimes I think the lean angle's a little off. I'm able just to keep the gas on because of the low revving power. A couple sections I did get a little excited and over rev the bike. The chassis definitely doesn't like to be ridden that way. It's definitely set up for Kenny's liking. Pro Circuit gave it an awesome sound. Guts gripper seat cover, definitely needed that because the bike pulls out. One thing that the stock bike doesn't have that Kenny's bike has is the hot start lever on the left-hand side. Probably for circumstances of High Point, for example, when he fell over, probably needed that. Overall, great experience to ride his bike.
Yeah, and for me, Ken Roczen's bike, I mean, that was the first factory bike I've ever ridden, so that was pretty cool. And for me, I'm more of a smooth rider, so I was kind of looking forward to it. It's definitely different. I don't think I could race it. The power delivery was good, but for me, I felt like the shock rode really high and the forks were really low. So anytime I would try to push through the face, it would feel like I was kind of pushing over the front too much. But other than that, the clutch, like Dennis said, it's when you need it, it's there. And talking to the guys at HEP, they told me that when Kenny rides the bike, he needs, whenever he's doing something with the throttle, brake, or clutch, the bike needs to be reacting. So that was pretty cool. And another thing I noticed was his front brake lever, really close to my hands. And when you touched it, it was there. But I was really surprised at how close he runs his front brake lever to the handlebar.
Yeah, one thing I noticed too is, speaking of levers, the rear brake lever was super high up, so it's like super easy to drag your rear brake. Mechanics were talking about how he actually sticks his foot under the rear brake lever to try to get more leverage when he's pulling up and seat bouncing off of jumps. Besides that, can you explain the slipper clutch? That takes away decompression braking coming into corners, right?
It can. It has multiple options that it could do. It just really helps smooth the chassis out. And then obviously with Jamie Ellis doing the motor and the mapping, they can fine tune it to exactly where Kenny wants his power and off power. Obviously with the capabilities and the tools that they have, they probably changed from a Charlotte to LA this last weekend. You know, in 2016 when I rode his factory bike, it was a true outdoor bike.
Yeah.
So obviously the settings always vary because factory guys have the option.
Totally.
So they did say sometimes they do run a spring fork, sometimes they run the air fork. So that's what's nice about this team. They have lots of options.
Yeah, I heard that Kenny runs spring fork during outdoors, and then was it the air fork in Supercross?
Yes.
So he runs the PSF1 KYB air fork, and honestly, the best part about the bike for me, like Brian said, snappy initial reaction, picks up and goes easily. Ultra stable. I mean, obviously we're riding a stock bike versus a factory bike. I felt like I could go 10 seconds faster on Ken Roczen's bike because it's just so stable and it picks up exactly when I needed to. I had enough fun and it felt comfortable enough to get sideways off the jump. So for me, it means I'm feeling good on the bike. right, guys, so Brian Medeiros, he's our Suzuki test rider. He's been racing this thing for a while now, 250 and 450. After he started riding Suzukis, Ken Roczen jumped on the Suzuki train, and now the HEP team and Suzuki have inked a deal to do multiple-year partnership. So Suzuki is going to continue racing in Pro Supercross and Motocross, and it sounds like Ken Roczen is soon going to be signing his contract to stay with Suzuki. It's awesome to see that Ken obviously did so well in Supercross this year. He did really well at High Point when he jumped into the Nationals. Raced the last 3 SMX finals. He's doing Motocross the Nations. He's racing in Paris, and he's really trying to go all in for Anaheim 1 and the 2024 Supercross season. So good to see that Suzuki's making a push. Dennis also mentioned they've got some new street bike models, and they got Ken Roczen and Brian Medeiros riding them at the pro races. So that means they're on the up and up, and we're just thankful that Suzuki's having us out here today. We got our 250 and our 450 stock models. And we also got to ride Ken Roczen's bike, so big thanks to Suzuki for letting us do that. Did it exceed your expectations?
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing the tunability of their bikes,
yeah.
Like how in depth they can get to set their bikes up for them, where the average consumer might be only able to do what's available to the public. So the technical details and everything they dove into to get that bike set up for Ken was the most interesting part for me.
Pretty impressive. Dennis Stapleton, you've ridden Ricky Carmichael's bike. You talked about how horrible that thing was because of the cockpit was tiny. You've ridden, what, Pastrana's bike? You've ridden everybody's bike.
Yeah, right.
So where did it fit in with other factory bikes you've ridden?
Well, it's right up at the top. Like I said, I've got the opportunity to ride Kenny's bike before, so I knew it was going to be good.
Yeah.
One of the most favorite bikes was Tim Ferry's factory Kawasaki. We're the same weight, same height, same thing. It was really worked out perfect, and it was set up for motocross. But going just as what the team did to be able to show finding other stock parts and how close they were, and just fine-tuning a stock motorcycle is impressive. How good Larry Brooks, Kyle Chisholm, and the whole group were able to just fine-tune a stock motorcycle that a lot of people kind of bag on or don't speak highly. This bike is really close to stock of Ken Roczen's. And I mean, I don't know too many people that are gonna jump that quad at LA this last week on a fairly stock bike. I know people will probably laugh when I say that. That's stock triple clamp, stock linkage, had some wheels on it. You know, he runs mostly stock parts. So this bike is incredible for the platform that they were given.
Another shout out we got to give to Jamie Ellis of Twisted Development. He's a close friend of all of ours. He writes a column in MXA every month, and he used to work for Rockstar Suzuki as their engine builder before he switched over to his own engine building company, Twisted Development. They talked about this engine is based off of Davey Millsap's 2018 Rockstar Suzuki engine. They've just done some refinements. Obviously, Jamie Ellis has learned more and more with mapping, and they've been able to build on the platform that Suzuki has had for years and years and make it a race-ready bike that obviously could battle with Jet Lawrence the past couple weekends. So thank you guys for watching this video. As a quick rundown, we're gonna have a full in-depth article listing off all the parts that are on Ken Roczen's bike. I'm gonna get some more details from the crew, so subscribe to Motocross Action Magazine. Tomorrow, we're riding the brand new 2024 Yamaha YZ250F, and we got our 250 shootout right around the corner. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.